Hello, and welcome back to History Talk. Today, we're going to be talking about the rise in the Civil Rights Campaign in Northern Ireland. Let's dive in. So, today we're going to be talking about the rise in the Civil Rights Campaign in Northern Ireland. So, while their Prime Minister or leader of the main party in Northern Ireland, Terence O'Neill, was, visiting, Catholic homes, Catholic schools, Catholic hospitals, and, meeting with the, and the Peace Nationalists by meeting with the Taoiseach and having the Taoiseach meet with him. These were seen by many as just tokens that meant really nothing, because there were still many policies the government ran that were pretty much anti-Catholic and anti-nationalist. These included housing. There's still discrimination in housing. There's still gerrymandering going on. And there was still an East of the River ban policy. The East of the River ban policy meant this. East of the River ban, there was a major Protestant majority. There was a large Catholic majority in the west, on the west of the ban, and there was a large Protestant majority on the east of the ban. So 70% of new factories that were set up in Northern Ireland were located in the east of the river ban. This was during O'Neill's years, and this was seen as a deliberate show of, just that they were going to pretend to be, non-discriminatory, but they were at the end of the day still discriminatory. And then came the Coleraine University problem. Now we'll discuss this later in another video in greater detail, but this showed a lot of evidence for neglect of the Western region. In the 1960s, it was still the case, still to that day, that the vast majority of senior positions in civil servants were held by Protestants. And you think in the private sector this would be different. But Catholics were still more likely to be found in the private sector in industries that had lower status and more unemployment, such as construction. Protestants dominated the more skilled industries, such as engineering and shipbuilding. It was also the case that Catholics were more likely to be unemployed than their Protestant counterparts. And this led to the civil rights movement in Northern Ireland. This was led by the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association. It was formed in 1967 with the aim of campaigning to end the practices of discrimination against Catholics. One of their most popular slogans was "One Man, One Vote," which highlighted the limited franchise in local elections. The first Civil Rights March was held in August 1968, when 2,500 people marched from Coal Island to Dungannon. This protest was against the discrimination in allocation of houses in County Tyrone. The marchers were confronted by approximately 1,000 members of the Ulster Protestant Volunteers, who were supported by loyalist leader Ian Palesy. Time and time again, they were met with violence. For example, another march was organised in Derry on the 5th of October in 1968 by the Derry Housing Action Committee and NICRA, and they had to hold this parade in spite of the Minister for Home Affairs, William Craig, banning it. The civil righters went ahead in their march, and during their march they were confronted by police who used water cannons and batons to disperse the protesters. The events were captured by RTE, Ireland's television network, by their cameraman, Gay O'Brien, and the footage of police officers mistreating the marchers was broadcast around the world. This proved that while Terence O'Neill might claim that he was going about the place, meeting with nationalists, meeting with Catholic persons, he was not helping them at all, really. He received pressure from the Labour's government to actually introduce some proper policies. And that's where O'Neill's 5-point plan came in. This was designed to appease the protesters, and one of the things that it considered was the introduction of a new independent commission to run the city instead of the Derry Corporation, and also the introduction of a point system to allocate housing. On the 9th of December 1968, O'Neill made a television address to the people of Northern Ireland. He declared that Ulster stands at a crossroads and called for the civil rights marchers to end their protests while reforms were being introduced. He also asked that loyalist opponents of the marchers should show restraint. In response to O'Neill's plea, many within the civil rights movement stopped protesting to allow time for the reforms to be introduced and to show that they would listen to his ideas and that they would respect them as long as he introduced some reforms. However, a group called the People's Democracy decided to hold a march from Belfast to Derry, starting on the 1st of January 1969. The People's Democracy was made up of students, mostly from Queen's University Belfast. Bernard Devlin was a prominent member. At first, the march was peaceful. However, on the 4th day of the march at Burntollet Bridge, the marchers were ambushed by a group of loyalists who threw stones, glass bottles, and iron bars at the protesters. In fact, off-duty members of the B Specials, the government reserve force for the police, were amongst those who attacked the marchers. News and treatment of the marchers at Burntollet Bridge led to rioting and demonstrations across Northern Ireland. The situation continued to deteriorate in the early months of 1969. Increasing civil rights demonstrations were controlled by more extreme Republicans and became more violent. In an election in Northern Ireland Parliament in March 1969, 27 out of the 39 Unionist MPs elected were pro-O'Neill. After the election, however, O'Neill continued to lose support from within his own party. On the 26th of April, he agreed to introduce a reform of one man, one vote, allowing all citizens over 18 to vote for the local election. In the following day, his cousin and fellow Unionist Party MP, James Clark, resigned in protest. What was weird about this was that it seemed to be an obvious step forward. At this time, you were not allowed to vote if you didn't own property. You were not allowed to vote unless you were of a certain age. You weren't allowed to vote for multiple reasons, and some of those weren't even some of those rules weren't even in effect in Britain. So it seemed only obvious to make them available in Northern Ireland. However, he still resigned. A series of bombing attacks were carried out on the electrical power stations and water and pipelines in late March and early April. These attacks were blamed on the IRA, although it is later uncovered that loyalist extremists were actually responsible. The attacks led some members of the Ulster Unionist Party to turn away from O'Neill. They believed the policy of introducing reforms was not bringing calm to the growing state of tension in Northern Ireland. With his supporters deserting him, O'Neill resigned as Prime Minister of Northern Ireland on the 28th of April. It is believed that this is one of the major sources for the conflict that would later be known as the Troubles. Join us next time when we'll be looking at more about Northern Ireland. Apologies if this isn't a very interesting topic for you, if it seems very centralised. There are other videos available that aren't about Northern Ireland. We've got other history videos. If you're not interested in history, then you can look at them. We've got business videos and other videos as well. Yeah, I might do something like the outro really now. So you know what? Let's just cut the outro this time. Yeah. I'm not saying we should cut the outro. I'm just saying let's do that just for this episode. Not for all episodes. Just for this one. Yeah. So basically, yeah. You can view other videos. You can subscribe. as I said, a few other videos. I'm getting a bit boring now, and I'm sorry about that. Don't click out just yet. Well, I mean, you can if you want to. So basically, other videos, subscribe, yeah, basically it. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you'll join us next time. See you then.